Welcome to Next TMT Talks. I'm your co-host, David Bloom, with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. This week's flagship podcast looks at how scared Hollywood really is about AI, especially Oscar winner Paul Schrader, director Gareth Edwards, and even my buddy who is doing Stan Lee's clone voice. We will be looking as well at Peacock going TikTok with its mobile app. The Force may no longer be with Star Wars, and Bari Weiss keeps going from one puzzling move to another puzzling move at CBS News. It's worth speculating, how is she going to screw up CNN if that deal ever gets through? Anyway, with all that, hi, Daniel.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
Oh, it's been quite a busy couple of weeks. We had AI on the lot this week. We talked a little bit about it on Wednesday in our midweek session. There's more stuff to talk about. Sat in on the day 2 keynotes from
Did you hear the big news?
Paul Schrader.
Two of the three winners of Amazon's grants, they were young filmmakers. They were given access to project
resources.
Right. Resources. Didn't outline what they were. But there were 3 series, all greenlit, and 2 of the artists backed off, so they don't want to move forward. I guess their peers gave them lots of backlash, and
I guess they got hammered and freaked out.
I just think
okay, all right. Meanwhile, other people are charging ahead. It's a really interesting thing. There are some people like this, but they're not leaving because they didn't like the idea in the first place. They're leaving because somebody else didn't like the idea. And I think that's pretty interesting in terms of you got so much crap so that somebody else had concerns. So now you have concerns because you've been educated, quote unquote.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can be. I mean, there is something to be said to the inevitability. I think we've remarked on that for some time. But there is a legitimate, very real, now palpable at every graduation commencement speech you see where they mention AI, every university from sea to shining sea, they boo the guy. Gen Z is concerned about the world they're about to occupy as adults, and they're worried about having jobs, they're worried about a creative future. And, I thought this is a very relevant show, and I didn't want to shit on it necessarily, but I did think Amazon's involvement, I don't want to use the word sinister, it got attached to me somehow, but I do think.
You did use those words, faintly sinister. That was your phrase. I did not make that up. That was yours. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's not a great match. And it doesn't surprise me that these young folks got home and their friends tore them a new one, and to save these relationships and their reputations, they backed off. Obviously, Paul Schrader, legendary director of Taxi Driver, doesn't feel that way.
He did not. He was a screenwriter of Taxi Driver. There's this guy named Martin Scorsese.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard of him, but he did Taxi Driver.
Okay, I misspoke. Okay, don't do that.
For billions of dollars. No, but anyway.
I think it validated a larger point that there was something untoward about Amazon's involvement in your friends.
No, it's not untoward. It's that a set of folks, which we already knew, a large set of folks in Hollywood, hate AI, hate everything about AI, hate AI possibly endangering their perception of their ability to get hired after spending $250,000 in film school. Fully understand that.
Right.
They should be throwing shit against the wall. YouTube and should have been doing since they were in junior high school, like some of these guys like Kane Parsons, who had a little movie called Backrooms that shot to the top this week's box office, spent $10 million making it. It had some real sets. It also is a guy who was a YouTube creator who did 22 these shorts on YouTube where he was exploring some of the slightly off stuff about this internet meme, the Backrooms meme. He's one of several young YouTube creators. Markiplier, who's got a huge following, 49.8 million or something like that followers, did Iron Lung, made $40 million, I think. Recently, the director behind Obsession, a horror film in its 3rd week, is doing The Impossible. It looks like it's headed to a 3rd week where has
what's interesting about Backrooms is it seems to be kind of a condemnation. I haven't seen it, but I've read a lot about it, and I'm gonna see it. It looks really intriguing, especially the economic model. You can't argue with the 120 million back the first weekend on a $10 million investment.
Right.
The Never mind the way it was made. I mean, all the IP was tested, the filmmaker was vetted and trained, ready to go.
Right.
Talk about
Yeah,
managing.
he'd been working on this stuff for, I mean, he's been working, like I said, he's done 22 of these shorts, mostly in high school. The guy's 20 now, I think. He's almost legally able to drink at his own premiere party. So God bless him for that. No, he's at A24. It's possible he goes the every other child star of Hollywood. You know, it's like, oh, you're not old enough to drink, but I bet you could if you wanted to. That being said, yeah, you know, you don't. So I need to spend $250,000, much as I love the School of Cinematic Arts at USC, to get your chops in if you are a creative person and you can use these tools. It's interesting as we talk about this, about the blowback. Like, you using AI means I don't get a job.
Well, let me just
That's
add
sort of the
one
equivalency.
thing about Backrooms. It's condemnation of AI. Everything in the Backrooms is there's something off about every space, every
Yeah, but
image.
it's really about glitching or no glitching is the meme in video games where there's and it happened to me yesterday playing my Battlefield 6. There is a glitch and I got stuck in a black room with a helicopter that wasn't going anywhere and I couldn't get out till I just left the game, which was not
Yeah,
great. All of a sudden, I got stuck in a back room. I was not happy about that. It is a thing with these big, complicated games. It's become this meme about what if that was the life, right?
right.
So that's not really it. You could read it as AI, but I don't think it's just like AI as much as it is immersive worlds that are not quite perfect. They're off somehow.
Right.
That being said, but what I wanted to contrast in our newsletter was here's three smart young YouTube creators who have built things that did really well on very small budgets. And then next to that is the Mandalorian and Grogu, which all in probably spent a couple $100 million between production and marketing. They got almost 22 million in California state tax credits. There's some jobs. It really needed to make about $500 million to
Right.
make back all that money. And probably it's at 240-ish now and not really rocking it. So Wither, Star Wars, they have new people in charge. Kathleen Kennedy finally went off to us, whatever it is, the cantina to go hang out or to go be an independent producer. They got new people in there who are longtime Star Wars people, but this is a big, big, big franchise that has kind of lost the force. You look at that versus this other stuff and you go, "Ooh, where are they going?"
Yeah, the force isn't coming back that way. Was it Albert Chang who was talking about how California tax incentives are designed for these massive productions with lots of people?
That can do the paperwork and all the winding through the bureaucracy of the state to be able to prove below the line costs to get reimbursed and all. You got to have a lot of below the line costs to be reimbursed to really make it worth the trouble. Right?
Yeah, it's tough. I think the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, once you prove that you can do these things and they can be done at a fraction of the cost, I mean, you can rail about it and revolt all you want to, but you're not ultimately
Or
going to stop.
pull out of your deal to have some great assets and take part in a project. You can pull out and say, I've been educated and I'm no longer going to be employed. I'm happy to be unemployed. No,
Without
I
without
think of this stuff
destroying
as the opportunity for a lot of folks who couldn't get through the gatekeepers in the studios, who couldn't get their ideas through, realize those ideas. And some of those ideas are going to work. Many of them won't. But lots of Hollywood movies don't work either, and they spend 9 figures finding out it didn't work. So, let 1,000 flowers bloom, to use Mao's term. So, our producer suggests that it's also about environmental concerns, which are wholly valid about some of this stuff. Aaron Brockovich is now having people send in information about where all the data centers are in the country, and it is kind of stunning. I think that's a different, still meaningful, probably very meaningful to a lot of folks, issue about what's affecting how people perceive all the data centers and the
We're
AI
gonna
that is
find
fueled by it.
ways to, like, move
But if you're
compute
a
near.
creative person and you're going to not look at these tools, fine. What are you going to do? You can't just sit there and boo them at commencement. You've got to figure out how you're going to make stuff. And maybe it's all practical effects. Great. Go for it. But start making shit and put it on YouTube and TikTok, like Peacock.
I'm trying to figure out why I was unsettled. I don't think that Todd, the MC who built this
Todd
show,
Terrazas, yeah.
yeah, impressive show, and he managed to pull it off under difficult circumstances. There obviously is a lot of controversy, but I have been questioning. I think it's okay to pull Amazon as a sponsor, but have them host and dominate the curriculum was a strange choice. And I think because there is a requiem that's needed, a period of mourning, just as advertising is being roiled, as everything, journalism certainly is delivered in different ways than it ever has been. TV and movie content will be created with different types of jobs. The role of creator will be more prompt driven. They're saying that humans will absolutely have a creative voice in how this unfolds. I think until we get to, I don't know when that will be, when we have actually sentient robots that can think and feel and be creative. Who knows when that is? So we'll have a role in this. It'll just be a very different role. And it'll be
Well, yeah, but
less.
that's the point. Figure out what those different roles are going to be. Don't just say no. Figure out, okay, and let's change this. Let's make it better. Let's do stuff. Booing Eric Schmidt may make you feel good at graduation, but it doesn't solve anything. It just expresses discontent. Now, that
It's a
being said,
conversation
but
we have that with Albert Chang in the room.
it's okay for Amazon and Google, which was there, and ByteDance, which was there with Seed Dance. They had an appearance by Gareth Edwards, who has not only made a very fine film called The Creator a couple of years back, directed, but also did installments of Godzilla, Star Wars, and Jurassic Park. Very self-effacing British fellow, quite funny. He's been home brewing visual effects stuff off of 3D software since the 90s. He used to put at the bottom of he put like little dinosaur movies and stuff on the bottom of his resumes when he would go for a directing job. And they go, well, hey, what's that? It's like, well, I just something I made. It's like, how? It's like on my computer at home. And they were like, well, double how, So this is a guy who's very comfortable with technology. And his whole point was, if you're a creator, you have to love this because it accelerates all the stuff you can do. So I can do a shot in half an hour instead of a day or half a day. But
Right.
It's not like you turn it loose. He had a very funny line. It's, AI has no taste. You can't just say, hey, make me a cool thing with sharks in it. I'm going to go to the spa. You've got to ride it and nudge it and push it and shape it and do all that stuff. You've got to be engaged. Otherwise, it's like an assistant director that's a billionaire on acid, which I thought was pretty funny. But his point is there's something there if you're a creative guy like him who's thinking this stuff all the time. I found him quite engaging. I was not so engaged by ByteDance's partnerships person who was the interlocutor, because she's like, journalists, please leave. Do not quote us. This is all supposed to not be quoted. And of course, promptly, within 12 hours, there were at least 2 stories I ran across about people talking about what Gareth Edwards had to say. And it's like, oh, let's just wave a red flag and whatever's left of journalism and say, don't write about it. So, well, I'm totally writing about this. Absolutely. Kind of dumb, but she's
maybe it's the most
from
brilliant
China.
PR
Maybe they don't think the media are more pliable there or something.
It might be a counterintuitive PR strategy would be somewhat brilliant if that's what the intent was.
Yeah, that's it. It was a PR strategy. Let's just say it was a bad one. It does bring up, speaking of media, what's going on over at CBS News. Yet again, Bari Weiss has left us puzzled. She named yet another print dude, though technically Nick Bilton, a very talented technology writer, has written for Vanity Fair and other outlets, perfectly good text-based person who's apparently been involved in the production of some documentaries, has never been in broadcast ever, and now he's going to be the news. I'm sorry, what?
He managed people? Has he served as like editor role even?
Well, he's overseen the production of documentaries, so I believe he's managed some people, but not 60 frickin' minutes.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know how many minutes he's done it, but it hasn't been for 60 minutes. Speaking of ticking and TikToks and all that stuff. So this is another curious, it's like the number 5 rated show, 57-year institution, and they're going to mix it all. Now, I have to say, though, that in the note that he sent to staff, he did say, you know, we put out this amazing thing. It's a week, and that's it. And we got to figure out other ways to do things. So it's like, I'm just not sure a
Yeah,
guy
I
with
mean,
no background is the guy to do it.
it's the 5th highest rated show on broadcast television in terms of aggregate viewers.
Right.
So, I mean, this is kind of a bridge too far for Bari Weiss, I feel like. She kind of flew under the radar, putting Dal Capil in the anchor slot and toying with CBS News because it wasn't highly rated. It was, I guess,
It was third. It was last. It was in
third,
last
right.
place. It's like,
60
what do
minutes.
you got to lose? Yeah.
It's still a top 10 show. And even though they throttled this year, taking the CCOT segment in December and shelving it for a month and silencing their voice, the chilling effect has already been felt, I feel that show. But they still declined only 3% in total viewership year after year.
Which is about as bad as it was going on broadcast as a whole, right? It was pretty much about what was going on overall in total viewership.
Yeah, this is 60 Minutes. It's not just anything, and to make these sort of radical moves. And I mean, if it needed to be merchandised in a different way, maybe it does. Late Night did. All broadcast content needs to be packaged and delivered in digital means, but that's her job. It isn't the job of the people that she let go. Sharon Alphonse, for instance, that just reeked of retribution. Alphonse stood up to her. You know, she was the one whose segment was shelved, and she did it in a really professional way that, you know, you want a journalist with backbone, there you had one. And it was a debate on principle, and Bari Weiss turned into a personal vendetta and got rid of her. That's how it felt. And you've got results that are emerging over the course of the full TV season. ABC's newscast finished first among all television shows. NBC's finished in 5th place, or high up. And way back in the pack at 27th.
Sixth place, I think. But yeah, way back at 27, bringing up the rear, Bari's choice. So
yeah, I mean, she's, you know, making things a lot worse. And it just, if you're why are you doing that? That's the next question.
She's making them different. She's just making them worse. It's like change is good, except when it's bad, and it might be not so good. It's interesting because, like, what do you do? I mean, there is absolutely a question. What does a show like 60 Minutes look like 5 years from now? Never mind her, in an era where broadcast is even smaller, where its reach is less and less, where its audience is half dead. What does 60 Minutes do in that era? They've added different digital components like this sort of overtime thing and stuff like that they've had for a number of years now. What does it look like? And the other question is, there is this little merger I've heard about, you may have heard about it too, where they would acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, which also includes among its holdings CNN.
That's vital. I want to get to that. But what was stopping Bari Weiss from repackaging Sharon Alphonse's segments in vertical format and putting them on?
Right, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So it'll be interesting to see if she gets her greedy little hands on CNN too, or for instance, Rob Bonta, who's running for re-election on Tuesday as a California State Attorney General, probably will win in a walkover. I'm guessing that it doesn't have a lot of serious competition, like the cavalry charge for governor to replace trimmed out Gavin Newsom. But Rob Bonta, a lot of push for him to do something about this Warner Brothers acquisition. At the very least, you'd think there might be like a requirement to spin out CNN and something with it, you know, like not pull it in and merge it in, but keep it as an independent organization. Which would be interesting to see where that would go.
Well, it's interesting that I'm hearing that the California Democratic legislators are giving more pressure than ever following Weiss's latest move on Bonta to try to get a preliminary injunction in the same way he got an injunction successfully against Nexstar and Tegna, the big $6.2 billion merger signed off with a rubber stamp by Trump. The more she does this kind of shit, the more she inspires the left or the center even.
Well, you might inspire the left and the center or the center left, but in court, You actually need more than inspiration. You actually need the law. So the question would be, can they make some arguments? They have standing. Yes, California companies. Yes, there's some opportunity there to require some different handling for diversity of news opinion, supposedly something conservatives want because they don't feel like there's enough diversity, even though there is a multiplicity of conservative voices, and some are doing quite well, like Fox News. But
Well, I
spinning
think
it
he has to
off
wait.
would be one way to deal with that.
I think Bonta has to wait until the DOJ and the FCC make their move. It's assumed that they're going to say yes.
Right. First thing you have to do is have something to try to enjoin. And so they've certainly signaled with initial review processes head on, there are some additional steps I think that need to be taken before you could move forward on that, along with likely a number of others, blue state, certainly AGs, but
Well, I
possibly
mean,
others.
we held up, and you pointed this out early on in this process. We held up T-Mobile and Sprint for over a year because the number of wireless competitors was diminished from 4 to 3. And it wasn't until
Right.
Charlie Ergen was emboldened to create the fourth network again that they greenlit the thing. And the same could be argued for major media conglomerates. You go from, what, 5 to 4 in this case? Less?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on what counts as major, what counts as media, with Netflix and Amazon Prime, MGM Prime, or faintly sinister Amazon Prime, M Studios, and YouTube. What are those? They're something. They're producing content, they're distributing things, they're doing all the things that the media companies do, a few other things that are worth trillions of dollars.
So when the defense secretary says it's about, we're just waiting for the day when David Ellison puts the clamps on CNN, and he did say that, not in those exact words, but pretty much verbatim. Can that has to be addressable in a court of law, right? You can suggest that Votem's competition is being usurped for an agenda. I think they could build a case. I don't know. I'm no lawyer, but
I'm not, and neither am I, but I mean, there's certainly data points that suggest intent, but that doesn't mean you necessarily can hang an antitrust case. That it's possible. It's certainly imaginable. So we'll see where that goes. I mean, in the meantime,
let me ask you this before since we're
okay.
on the topic of courts and regulation, and Nexstar this week asked the appellate court overseeing its preliminary injunction of its merger, hurried up. They want to do the hearings in August because they're being harmed. That time is money, and we're spending it. In the meantime, Tegna has let go of all their senior management. To their credit, the federal government said you're closed. FCC and DOJ have signed off. You've merged. And then this verdict came in from California, and it held everything up. So let's say the preliminary injunction is granted or is sustained. What happens next? They have to go to court to...
Well, the appeals court's reviewing it. They're being asked to expedite the process of review to August, which doesn't feel very expeditious.
It doesn't.
What Nexstar is trying to do is create a fait accompli, where, well, we don't have any management there anymore, and we basically own them. So just let us own them, because we went ahead in good faith or not, but basically have it, and there's no way to crack that egg, and that's I suspect going to be their argument. Now, it's the flip side of that argument is you did this knowing you had some challenges coming, and they came, and you still went ahead and took the next step and the next step, got rid of that management, changed all that, and now you're feeling uncomfortable about it and spending money. It's like, oh, well, kind of brought it on yourself, right? You violated what seemed to be pretty straightforward congressionally passed rules, say so, people who didn't necessarily have the authority, and now it's uncomfortable, and it's not our job to make you comfortable because you broke the rules. That's a potential, very strong legal case that the courts could decide to take, and the appeals court.
Right.
The Ninth has been traditionally more liberal, right? The Ninth Circuit's traditionally been more liberal, but then so it'll go up to the Supreme Court, and
right.
we'll see
They can
what
rule
happens.
that It's a violation of the law, and the only way to change the
Mm,
law is through Congress, which established it.
yeah.
And then if it's decided in August, there's still time with this current federal legislature to go back and say, "Hey, listen, the court says that you guys gotta change the law. Do you think you could do that for us?"
Yeah, I don't look if they have hearings in August and then the ninth noodles about it for weeks, couple weeks, whatever, that gets you into September.
Yeah.
Supreme Court doesn't get together until was it first Monday in October, and they typically would be surprising if they acted expeditiously to both review and
Really?
rule that. Yes,
I think they would
yes.
probably,
Um,
this for the cause.
they start to get into some sticky territory in terms of, oh, you're strict constructionists. Well, this is a congressional rule. You
Right.
guys say, follow what they say, not administrative rogues going wild and just saying, oh, this what they say doesn't matter because, in fact, that goes against now. They could still do it because some of them have been a little bit less following their own stated hyperbole about legal positions, but it's a hard one to argue within the parameters of their calls for a much better lineup of following the Constitution and respecting the boundaries of the different branches, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that being said, mentioned that Peacock has gone full TikTok, which I find interesting. They're way ahead of Disney, which has slipped plans to make Disney Plus their streaming app, their everything app
Well, it was
for
something
all
they
their
announced
connections. So
South by Southwest. Matt Strauss announced that they were going to integrate all of these kind of Gen Z-ish TikTok-like features.
verticals.
Right. It's not just verticals they're doing. Well, there's micro dramas from Real Shorts that they're licensing. There are vertical highlights of NBA games. Like today, if you wanted to see last night's Game 7 of the Spurs OKC series, you could watch it in vertical format. There's games, all sorts of stuff that appeals to, uh, the reality shows. There's like the Bravoverse, I think it's called. It's a special Andy Cohen guided.
AI Andy Cohen. So it's spelled AINDY. AINDY, AINDY, and Andy was his name. Oh,
There's that.
anyway,
Yeah, good. So Rich Greenfield and Gay Lightshed noticed that these features, they were supposed to come live in the summer, and they have. And they had been
it's not
disappointed.
even summer yet. That's like, well,
They had been
uh,
disappointed with Netflix's vertical announcement a few weeks ago. It's basically just Netflix shows put on iOS and Android in vertical highlight form.
and really, it's really more. Not even that. It's more like clips
Right.
and memeable stuff, right? It's not dramas, micro dramas for this format. It's not new
These are
content that's
original,
not
made for
otherwise on there.
the format
Yeah.
shows, and it's
Yeah.
an app engineered to compete where 30% of the Love Island audiences go. That's how it was described. If you can't beat
Oof.
these YouTube, et cetera, from taking your content and benefiting from it, try to claim some of it with an app that's as sticky. And they may be lagging behind at 46 million subscribers. That's half the audience of, Paramount, HBO Max, certainly Disney Plus. Everybody who launched SVODs around the same time they did, they're way behind. But in terms of understanding that, the platform isn't the end all be all. It's an extension of these brands. The brands are the core asset. And maybe in the long term sense, they win if they view it that way.
Well, yeah, it is appropriate, I think, if you are running the kind of soup to nuts operation that Comcast runs, to
Right.
think about it that way, right? It's like because they're providing the broadband, they're providing the wireless phone system, they're providing the Zumo operating system for the devices, they're providing content that goes on there, they're providing the theme park based on it, they've got the streaming service that has both their broadcast and cables, whatever's left of their, I guess Bravo is what they still have, and
Yeah.
sport, things like, so they're really soup to nuts. So they should be doing all this even more than Disney, arguably, because Disney doesn't obviously do broadband. They do cruise ships, and theme parks, just like Universal does. But, I think that more holistic thinking is starting to click in Hollywood, where a franchise, whatever it is, Star Wars, lives in a lot of places, in a lot of forms, and goes from there. And by the way, 60 Minutes should be in lots of places, in lots of forms. I think that's what Nick Bilton was trying to get at. Again, I'm just not sure he's the kind of guy do that, and I'm not sure how you keep your golden goose laying eggs without laying some bad ones, some stinky
I'm not
ones.
saying it's a bad hire, but I don't think that Tanya Simon, who had her father was
Bob Simon, the guy. Yeah. He
yeah,
he
he's
was up there with Mike Wallace, you
so
know?
she's a critical piece of DNA for the show, and I don't think she was the one that should have been replaced.
Literally. Yeah, she was absolutely literally DNA. She was born to 60 Minutes. So,
Alphonse was what, 84? So they're long on the tooth, but they're still performing, still making great content. Think of ways to merchandise them. Don't upset the apple cart. I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we're going back and
I'm less worried about whether specific porters come and go than whether there's any useful vision or ability to carry it through. It's like, yes, look, I have worked newspapers where I did interviews with people who said, I'm buddies with the managing editor. We play golf every weekend. That's a shot across the bow. All right. I have had plenty of meddling with my journalism by folks for political or relationship reasons. I've gone through that. Ain't a lot of fun, but that's the reality that goes back, William Randolph Hearst, You Find the War. I
I
mean,
remember working at the backwaters of Variety's publishing group. I worked for the video business group, which our content sometimes wound its way into the flagship, but mostly we were this sort of backwater trade. And I would get calls from a PR firm telling me, okay, we talked to Mike, he was the managing editor. Here's what you're gonna do. And you're like, okay, let me get my transcription tablet out. It was just
yeah,
demoralizing. It's like I got
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
It's the thing. So we can be cross-legged virgins, but the reality is we both had to find our way through lots of complicated, sticky places. Speaking of which, this weekend I went to go see my buddy Chip in his new house down in Palos Verdes. This backdrop behind me is the cliffs a couple of blocks from his house, far enough away I'm not worried about him falling in anytime soon.
the famous Palos Verdes. Yeah.
Well, the part that moves is actually a few miles away over on the south side. He's on the west side near PV High School, and it's beautiful. Obviously, his home is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Among those at the dinner or the mid-afternoon gathering was a fellow. I said, "Are you a journalist?" He says, "No, no, no." I says, "I did write a couple of books. One was called A Decent Interval." I go, "What, are you Frank Snepp?" And he goes, "Yeah."
Oh,
Who was a CIA analyst who wrote a tell-all book about the CIA in Vietnam, did not submit it to pre-publication review as required still by the CIA of all its folks. And they went to court in a famous lawsuit. He showed up in a 60 Minutes piece. I still remember talking about all this stuff. They took away all his profit. He didn't make a nickel off of that book and wrote another book about all of the stuff around the first book being blocked, and then went on to work for people like 2020,
yeah.
C's old 60 Minutes equivalent, and working on the OJ, covering the OJ case, back when I think Channel 9 was owned by Disney, and they had lots of money, and they were chasing lots of interesting stuff. So, but he talks about some of the things they couldn't get done because people would call from Bush 1's White House and say that that's a national security thing. We can't, you can't run that. And of course it was arresting, gun running between Israelis and Noriega and the Iranians and, really complicated stuff in and around the Iran-Contra stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, these things are not new.
I'm envious. It sounded like that was a cool connection and a neat dinner to go to. And I hope.
Yeah.
Do we have more topics from the newsletter that we
We
want to?
do have one little one. I just want to throw it out there because it matters so much in college sports and college TV rights. So the Big Ten has been pushing for an expansion from 12 teams to 24 to
Well, you
double
know,
this.
Nebraska and UCLA were eliminated from college baseball competition today. USC is playing Texas A&M, one of the few Big Ten teams left.
You know what? Let's just try to stay on topic just
Okay,
for a
all right.
second.
Let's talk about
Let me finish
again.
what I was saying. The SEC had conference meetings because they're being pushed to expand from the current 12-team college football championship to 24, and they're maybe open to 16. Basically, the Big Ten and the SEC have been delegated all the decision rights because they're the two conferences that matter in this stuff. And the SEC is like, look, we're not so sure we want to do that. Among other things, they have a conference championship game that generates $50 million to $100 million every year that goes just to the conference. They don't have to share that with everybody else. Whereas if they expand the entire college football playoff championships, yes, more teams get in, probably 5, 6 DC teams maybe, but that money gets shared across 118 colleges, many of which, it's
Let me
worth
see if they
noting,
understand.
let me just stop. Let me just finish. Many of those schools are already financial trouble because they're spending way more than that $21.5 million they're supposed to spend on their athletes. They're spending too much. Utah's already brought in private equity to help out, and that's kind of complicated. The attorney general of that state saying, we're going to have to watch this closely. This is a really interesting time, and the SEC this is worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and would change the game, push everything forward, get rid of the conference championship games. Hero week would disappear. I mean, it would just become the first week of the season as opposed to some
You
people
answer my
playing.
question. So part of the playoff would subsume those conference championship games, which feel to me
Absolutely.
anticlimactic. I mean, the Indiana Ohio State game was so dramatic and so great. I'm just thinking of the 10 version. But then you go into an even more consequential series of games. Functionally, it should be rolled in. But I can see why, if you don't have to share the revenue and it's generating $100 million, well, obviously your revenue loss now it's
a big reunion for the conference. Everybody comes into Atlanta, like from all the schools, and like it's a thing. I mean, it's a cultural thing for them, and it means something to win the SEC. And I get all of that, all of that. So, but again, this is, there's speculation that Fox wants in on the college playoff. They did not bid the first time around. ESPN got it. ESPN delegated some of these to Warner Brothers as part of that whole NBA rights deal thing. So they got a couple of the first round games, but Fox wants in, so they're pushing their partner, Big Ten, to push for 24 games because the presumption is you double the games. We got some room. We can sneak in there and grab some stuff.
24 games or 24
we'll have
games?
more football. I'm sorry, what?
You said 24 games. A bracket with 24 games or 24 teams?
24 teams.
Right.
So what you would do is top 8 get a bye the first week. Bottom 16 play each other, the home stadium of the higher seeded team. And you do the same thing next round with the winners of those 16 playing the 8 who got the bye. Then you do, quarterfinals, semis. Stuff.
A 16 team, I think we've talked about this. A 16 team format feels okay to me. It's what the NCAA basketball tournament was at one point years ago.
Right. But that was too restrictive when you got 335 basketball teams. You got 118, and let's be frank, you got 15 teams that have a legitimate shot to get past the first round and not be annihilated. So it's different in football. Football is just a different game. Oh. Anyway, but this is a big one to watch, and the SEC is not backing off yet. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of money. There's all this stuff going on with Congress maybe doing some stuff, probably not. Trump with his second executive order, maybe doing something, probably not. There's a lot of stuff going on this, and I think it's worth watching. And don't forget how many people watch college football. It's really second only to the NFL in terms of being watched, right? These big games get watched. That SEC championship game, I think, was in the top 100 most watched games of the year last year, again, as it is.
All right, let's sing it out. We covered a
All
lot.
right. Cover a lot of ground here. Anyway, I am David Bloom, co-founder with Daniel Frankel of this here podcast, Next TMT Talks, and our twice a week newsletter. This podcast comes out Mondays and Thursdays. Midweek, it's a partnership with Media Play News, and you can get that free on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts and other fine purveyors of audio and video goodness. You can also get our newsletter for free. That's Next TMT as in technology, media, and telecom. nexttmt.com. Lots of T's in there. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Love comments mostly, and let us know what you think. They're great, and we are getting ready for big shindig in Denver in a couple of weeks. I can't quite get my head around it, but I know
Stream
it's
TV
coming.
show,
Stream
June
TV show.
the 19th. We'll have show dailies every day for that cycle. They'll go out to the Stream TV audience and our audience. And starting tomorrow, tomorrow, it'll be Tuesday, we're doing an extension of the brand focused on compute, telecom, wireless, broadband networks called Next TMT Networks with Dan Jones, longtime telecom reporter. So check that out as well. You'll have to subscribe to that one if you're not already subscribed to it. nexttmtnetworks.com.
All right, so we got two Dans now and a David. We're gonna branch out to like another letter soon. In the meantime, thank you everybody for everything. We love our audiences. We love anybody that deigns to listen to our golden wisdom. Thanks and have a great week. We will see you soon. Take care.